So welcome everybody. My name is David Pavelich. I am a member of the the board of the Friends of Lorine Niedecker. And I want to welcome everybody to the very first in a new series of virtual poetry readings called the North Central Reading Series. Today we're going to be hearing from Noah Zanella and Shannon Tharp. So we're really excited about this. I'm just going to say a few things about Lorine Niedecker and the Friends of Lorine Niedecker before I hand it over to Rick and Chuck, who are going to introduce our readers today. See if I can get the screen to advance. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Lorine Niedecker, I wanted to just take a moment to introduce her as a poet. Lorine Niedecker was active primarily in I think of her as a poet of the 40s, 50s, and 60s. She died in 1970. She primarily lived in Black Hawk Island, which those of you who joined early just heard Anne giving us a little update on the conditions out of Black Hawk Island right now. She was associated with poets that were sometimes referred to as objectivist poets, Louis Zukofsky primarily among them. And her poetry initially was published in avant-garde publications like Sid Corman's Origin, Wild Hawthorne Press from Ian Hamilton Finlay, and Jonathan Williams' Jargon Society. If you haven't read her work, we recommend that you take a look, and probably the easiest place to access the work is through the Collected Works, which was published by University of California Press. So drop by your library or stop by your local bookstore and check it out. I think that everyone attending today would really like the work. Chuck, Rick, and I are all members of the board of the Friends of Lorine Niedecker. We're a nonprofit organization dedicated to preserving the legacy of Lorine Niedecker. This event is part of that. And I just wanted to mention that we do have a website, and donations are always welcome. Donations support events like this. Virtual events, but also in-person events that promote poetry for all ages, including youth, and also promote the life and work of Lorine Niedecker. We'll put a link to we'll put a link in the chat as well for that donation link. So without further ado, I'm going to pass things over to Rick.
Thanks, David, for introducing the first ever North Central reading. And I want to mention before I introduce today's first reader that our second reading will be October 1st, 2023 at the same time, 5 p.m. Central. And we're thrilled that we'll be joined by Terza Goldenberg and Joshua Beckman on that day. So look out for more information about that in the future. And the Friends of Lorine Niedecker website is a place to find out more. Our first reader is Noah Zanella, who's a Chicago-based writer and musician. He works as a professor at Carthage College, as an editor at Masks Literary Magazine, and a teaching artist at Hugo House. He's also a co-founder of the new Gourd, G-O-U-R-D, a very Niedeckerian name magazine, which will be releasing its first issue in the fall. He's a poet and writer who's open, I think, to the same present moment that Niedecker was open to, and his immediate surroundings, out of which poems in their shapes and sounds emerge. And I know he's told me in conversation that he's been reading her writing every summer to learn how to write poems since I think he was an undergraduate. So there's been a long connection for him with Niedecker and Zukofsky and the objectivists as well. So we're really happy to have Noah start off this reading series. So please welcome Noah Zanella. And Noah, happy to have you. Take it away.
Hi, hello. Thank you, Rick, for the introduction. And can you guys all hear me? Yeah, okay. It really is an honor to be here. Niedecker is really important to me. It must be, yeah, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, 7 years maybe of reading her work every summer. I feel like I'm supposed to say something intelligent about her work. I'm not sure how much I have to say, other than that I enjoy it more every time I read it, and I do learn so much from her. I'm going to read the same poem that I read last time Rick introduced me to do a reading back in October, just because it references Niedecker and quotes her at another time, and because I wrote it over the summer where I was reading her collected works, and so it sort of got in there. I call her LN in the part where she gets referenced. But okay, I'm just gonna read this one long poem. It's called Field Recordings. It starts with an epigraph from Louis Zukofsky. I'm here, let the days live their lines. All right, Field Recordings. 2 women in cowboy hats say, I love you, I love you. Maybe we're all fragile. Anyway, I didn't want to leave. I noticed the pattern of my iris, but it isn't like being there. 2 parts brandy, 1 part triple sec, 1 part lemon juice, sugar on the rim. Myopic as then, though possibly of naming what is seen, to ligature something to something, and then I came into the room. Arm extended like so, only it shows itself. We laughed in the lazy boy together, and meanwhile the rough dancer and the cyclical night. Hallucinating, he looked upriver, and the current pressed their bodies against the rock. Sewed a small blue button off center. I'm trying to get over things being unsaid. Waiting on laundry, hearing it, it's easy as anything. I'm trying on new ideas of myself. I get dressed and do my hair. A whale's esophagus is only a few inches in diameter, so there's really no danger of being swallowed whole. Every day they went into the water and came back speechless. This, when the eye slipped its moorings, is an implicit geometry. Today I read a chapter on the phenomenology of roundness. From the stairway on the other side of a door, I could hear the intermittent whir of power tools, but a few hours later, when I walked down the stairs, I didn't notice anything different about the room. 1, exaggerated image of a plover standing in shallow water. 2, 6 gourds on a plywood shelf. This, the experience of being in an image, is round as a walnut tree. There's a blade of grass stuck to my shirt, just below the shoulder. I saw 4 rats last night in a flower box outside a bakery. I was not looking on a slant. At the museum, I stooped and turned my head upwards so I could get my eyes on a miniature cupola. Yesterday, on the sidewalk, 2 women played a duet for accordion and violin. Actually, the accordionist was a man in a red vest. So maybe if I get dressed and do my hair and the conversation is lighthearted. Don't mistake this for a diary, to be open to the fictive. 1 large egg slid out of a broken shell into the batter. When I took a nap on the lawn, acute awareness of the distance of other minds. A red car is parallel parking in front of me. A few flies land on a newspaper in a plastic bag at the foot of a stoop. At the bus stop on Ashland, on the bench next to me, a woman in baggy jeans and a hoodie is rolling a cigarette. In the hollow, mushroom picking, a girl in a sweater, dark trees, there is no plot. On the road to my brother's house, 1 sip of chocolate milk. I remember berry picking and apples. Here is a basket. Oh no, I've missed blackberry season again. Such a short window, you know, before the birds. Figures pass in and out. I don't know them anymore, but I rode in their cars. Bird din and sirens, mayfly on allium sphere, root split boards give way, one honeyed spine, taste of. In fall, the woodcock come into the alders, drill for worms with muddy beaks, and bucks rub velvet from their antlers. Deer are a kind of ruminant, from ruminare, to chew over again. Repetition of what is noticed, light off spider silk in the space between the eye and its object. To find myself in an old coat, having built this path of dirt and mulch, was that thunder a fly dips into the field of vision, a pause, a scuffed up canoe, meaning that one closed umbrella into such an evening, the last of this blue wooden bench. Yes, the day was easy and hours were lost to idleness when I have not seen you in years. Does it matter which of these lines are imagined and which have been seen? I want to give you something worth your time. I'm sorry. I know you are dying. A flake of ash goes out over the lake. What's the point in what is seen? Rain falls on this open page and into the fire in an iron bowl. Maybe I could use a little story. Check out the thighs on those Olympic gymnasts. I hope I have not abandoned life for language. On the porch in the middle of a minor family reunion, I can see how a book like To the Lighthouse gets written. We speak out of mutual longing. I don't know what to say. I'm waiting for you to text me back. Coconut cream on a chocolate pie. Last night we read Robert Hass out loud. All the new thinking is about loss. Some of us had not read this yet. I'm going to die and you are going to die, and my father is talking about proper form when running and swimming. It's like trying to brush your teeth with your left hand. Maybe I'll revisit the pig killing thing because bacon is so good. I talked to a couple from Alaska who strings them up from a tree and slits their throats. I looked into it. You should use carbon monoxide. I have these memories, but nothing adheres. And the grass where we lay in each other's skin, moth-swarmed porch light, carpeted steps, how water darkened the concrete. Such adumbration, it's like trying. When I drive back to the city. Today, can't catch a rhythm, trying, crossing it out. It feels like coming home, stepping out on the dock under 3/4 of a moon. July was a progression of squalls over common yarrow and short walks to measure the form. I'm not going to write about the fawn that came into the clearing today by the ledge over the river. It happened and then it was a memory, such that arrival and departure were one. It appears that everything is like this. I'm pulling a canoe onto shore and it scrapes against the rocks and there's water dripping from my shirt sleeve. I'm on the porch at Loon Lake and it's the same view as last September and I still don't know how to talk about the water. A clay chimenea where the mirror was. The mirror is now in my apartment in Chicago. The northern side of the lake sparkles and subtle waves move irregularly along a surface. I have not been awake. I see branches blown back by wind, their leaves curling. The shadows of the branches on the deck make space for patches of light. It's 2:52 p.m. of a Sunday in Dallas Plantation, Maine. The ground is soft. I push my glasses along the bridge of my nose towards the space between my eyes. I hear a motor running of some kind. I touch my cheek. When I move my palm against the stubble, it makes a sound. About now, milk and have you forgotten something? Then, on a brick walkway, one bird, its chest cavity, with a fly crawling out. One symptom is a diminished internal monologue. I've been on the lookout, trying to mark the occasion of speech. The other day, while masturbating, just as I began to ejaculate, a voice in my head shouted, "Life is so confusing." Yes, it can be difficult to take oneself seriously. Remember LN's intimation that letters are also lettuce. Eventually, one encounters the constellation, a lost pocket knife, these legs, a filament, the eyes, albumin. How a center being drawn, having found the frame. I mean, walking into the kitchen at night with no plan at all. I mean, the line of a spine, which is both meadow and marrow. The river being one swept shape, we slid on our heels down the ledge. On the rocks along the rapids, a dozen black ducks straighten their necks. I think of Melville's penguins, like sculpted caryatides. Checkers is a solved game, but too complex for a human to play it perfectly, so we have tournaments. Clearly, the monosyllabic Anglo-Saxon words constitute a vocabulary. Give me a mouth full of mud and moon. One morning, when the mill exploded, driving to school, I saw the breached wall and a man looking in. I do remember lying all night on a wet trampoline. I do remember. I'm thinking about writing a fan letter. I'm thinking about making a sandwich. I'm going through, in my mind, the contents of my fridge, trying to decide what to put on it. Yes, like today at breakfast with Nisha, how I spoke about music. Last year, Lisa said, if you have nothing but self-consciousness, then write the self-consciousness. Then she asked whether one should try to write a poem, implying that one shouldn't. I've tried being Philip before, said Phil. Cusp and emphasis, the wind jostling a shadow, this business of proportion. I couldn't tell if I was reading a book on architecture. Yes, the body, it's like watching. In the museum, when I reached for your forearm, O'Keeffe's pale skull on pale paper, I guess at the color of the roses. In waking, that one's body, briefly a single point, and as there is spreading, the waves turning back into sheets. For the time being a din, cicadas, in this alcove on Fullerton, waiting for you, is this a love poem? And when I drive home, having to be oneself inexorably. That which is not digression despite irrelevance, however amorous the subject. So a fixity at the line of one's flesh as when I climb on top of you. Maybe romance occurs at a distance, thinking, only confirmed by the actual movement of your teeth against my shoulder. Let's go, cows, the barn is on fire. But today, a total lack of sexual desire. To erase a center as it forms, this, whoever, let us trace the slope, which is of the mind, or landscape, now continually. The months really do get away, and am I really going to keep writing you until late September? Or maybe it will be difficult to stop, since putting everything in one place makes me see how Zhukovsky spent his whole life writing A. One sung round my hyoid bone, snagged or whatnot, having only what's in this cup as it spills. Yes, I am very confused, and time is. On a stone shore, shallow waves come up onto my feet and over my toes. I can hear the water, splish, splash, sassafras, though of course there are practical things. I feel like a child while she swims. 3/4 of one beer, Cage timing his songs with one watch. When I was a kid, I visited my grandmother in Connecticut, and I spent a long time staring at her carpeted staircase, putting my palms on it. Psychedelic drugs feel like childhood in that way. I want to get lost again. Here they are, objects and aspects. But if you look at them steadily, she says, multiplicity becomes unity, which is somehow the secret of life. Because for years I was always writing about the fridge and the air conditioning, I feel embarrassed to write about them again. But here I am Sunday morning on my side listening. There is nothing to make sense of. What's learned being love, so that one does not wish the object of one's affection to perform as something other than itself, nor even to say or mean anything other than the act of being what it is. So clearly something different has to happen in order to keep going, or else patience. I'm writing a sentence. This mirror slims. One reads often about cicadas, and now lately passing under branches, an actual drone. One entrance into wheat makes a figure, widespread into swaying. What then? This interior holds twice 2 and 3, remember blue reaching a facet. Wend not if touched down upon a kind of galloping. Now, of course, to dress, but only fork and knife to clink, clink, in several attempts to suddenly the engine, low. When I stayed up all night, I pined for indolence of a kind. Suggesting an emphasis, man next to me on bench at L platform, also reading poetry. Okay, that's it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Noah.
Wonderful.
Chuck, take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you for that expansive reading, Noah. So for those not familiar with this format, choose speaker view, and then that will give the poet her own window. Thank you all for being here. Welcome. I know from firsthand reports that Shannon Tharp is a frequent road tripper and, like Lorine Niedecker, a regional traveler, radically alert to local geographies. Shannon grew up in Gillette, Wyoming, spent formative years in the Pacific Northwest, and in recent years has conducted her vital language work as a poet and librarian in Wyoming and Colorado. She now lives in Denver and works as a librarian at the University of Denver. She is author of the poetry collections The Cost of Walking from Skysill Press and Vertigo in Spring from the Cultural Society. She's also co-editor with Sommer Browning of Poet-Librarians in the Library of Babel, Innovative Meditations on Librarianship. Shannon's concise sonic textures echo Lorine Niedecker's resonant precision in practice more than in style, in the style of Niedecker being an impossible errand. Shannon's deeply attuned quiet emerges from an abiding patience, bordering on a charged silence, which, if intense, makes sound. Please welcome the first poet we thought of to launch this North Central reading series, Shannon Tharp.
Thank you, Chuck. That was, I think, the best introduction I've ever received. You tracked my life's work, basically, which is kind of thrilling in a way. I wanted to start by saying that this morning I was talking with my partner, Whit Griffin, and I said, where's our copy of Between Your House and Mine? I want to take a look at what Lorine Niedecker was saying in, March, April of whatever year. And when I opened the book through some act of bibliomancy, my thumb was on a July 28th, 1965 entry about the Black Hills in South Dakota, right near where I grew up. Gillette abuts the Black Hills, about 90 miles drive or so to the Black Hills. So I just want to start by reading this entry, postmarked July 27th, 1965, from Lorine Niedecker to Sid Corman. She says, Dear Sid, well, South Dakota, We loved it, but driving across 3 states to get to the Black Hills, those immense, rather flat distances between points, was terribly tiring. We wanted to go to Yellowstone National Park, but we just couldn't get up the strength in the heat. You might say that in the hills, we got the flavor of the Western movies. We waited in Custer National Park, Black Hills, for buffalo to pass from one side of the road to the other, fed the donkeys there, poor things at the mercy of everybody's sweets, noticed cattle, steers, wherever we saw them, usually huddled together at the fence, almost pushing the fence out. Wondered why they did that, maybe waiting for a truck or somebody with water for them. Cowboys, actually cowboys, in their high boots and high heels, took a picture of one as golden brown in the face as his horse. I love that passage. So I'll start there. Lorine Niedecker has informed my work since I started reading her at the age of 20. So about 20 years now. And I don't know that I have much more intelligent to say at this point. So I'm going to read some poems, and I'll start with a few from The Cost of Walking, which is my first book and was published what seems like a long time ago now, but really probably wasn't that long ago. A basic approach to the face. Head first into a field sketch. The mouth is capable of accepting every shade. Make a picture. Try to see the sun. It's fine. You'll never look at me from where I am. Allergy. Just because I feel dis-ease doesn't mean it's mine. Altitude flinches. An apple splits. By way of highest pollen, this flower pain is yours. Steady, less and less. The day flickers before us in a thicked up throb of questions. What of birds and the peculiarity of flight? A pattern by which to scratch existence. What of me and the inexpense of sitting in a field with your face to any nameable thing? When simply the having is enough, will you ask, how are you breathing, my girl? And these next few are from Vertigo in Spring, which was published by the Cultural Society about a decade ago now. Scarecrow. The world's brave names are down in fields with their faces clotted by earth, and you stand there not saying that you need to think longer on this protracted change, this clasping weight, this time as pain for which loves no explanation, for which one learns to be born through sound in that she doesn't speak much at first. But when she finally makes clear a form for words, it's there she's given to stay. And isn't she fazed by rain or data or shitty pictures of half-lit leaves at someone's feet, all of it clicking down, leaving her with marks meant to last, away through her mind, that she might carry something of yours in remembrance of whoever you were when you were beside her saying nothing. When she wanted to turn and say instinct transpires, not when I think I need it, but when I don't think. Postcard to my sister. Whatever terror made us, there is no other love. Think of open sky over Wyoming, the point at which hills plateau. This is how it feels to live alone, to hold yourself through sleep. Prairie, endearing, postscript to extinction's letter. Close up with Margaret Kilgallen. A cardinal, an ocean, months without hearing another's voice. Tell me now, again, who I am. There's room enough on the verge of spring to address the dead, the dreamed, the desired. Show me something open, something all of a piece, something rare to pace the waiting. You work bent on the heart's tension, figuring the feel of how to feel. There's been a hand in the world ever since backgrounds existed, ever since trains were around. And the letters you learn by looking, you leave in your way as a way to make light. Every shadow rendered graphic, flat, the room gets endless, cathedral. One forgets the flaw you perform, the ever-wavering line you can't make straight. Vertigo in spring. An off-course dream leaves me dizzy, unable to hear, and ruin, you old friend, you stare back, say nothing, as do tulips in bloom on the table. Okay, I have some newer poems, which I guess we have some time for. All right. Recursive. More neurons in the brain than stars in the Milky Way. Some structure, however tentative. And the fact of other forms doesn't fail to astound me, so much as it renders me speechless. The lawful world, incomprehensible, the arbitrary world, consumed by lapses, coffee and oranges in an office lonely as a picture occurs, your hand on a book, and in this body, more transactional than animal, the day goes by, quite by. Speechless. A muse falls into service for a liar, and nobody notices or pays it mind. People will think that pain has made you stupid. I understand every animal in me. Internal voicemail greeting. Rare the days I'm talked with rather than at or to. It seems I'm present only to be made use of. Amid estimates of attrition, my body's more shadow than human, more money than shadow. It's impossible to say where, if anywhere, I am, which is to say I'm not available. Digital shadow. A laptop in a bucket of salt water. Personal myth. In the middle of a nowhere so complete, that even thinking becomes a distortion. You believe the warped things you say to yourself, too far gone for any but the farthest out. The single apple in December's orchard. Middle distance. You look at me as though you think you're dead. I daydream of you right in front of you. Poem with Charlie Rich and Aeschylus. Once was a thought inside my head. The pain of pain remembered comes again. Love poem. You wave at me on your way to the beach. I clap my hands and kill a mosquito. Long Beach Peninsula. Shorebirds, noon surf. The ocean leaves me fragments. Two fawns share an apple in front of a jail. The signature of the lighthouse comprises two flashes, white, white, every 30 seconds. You are pretending love is worth waiting for. A winning wave travels for what feels like years before exhausting itself at my ankles. For George Oppen, there is always the question of music, which is never a question by itself. A lemon tree growing in a tunnel, words coaxed to the surface of a river, the heart thundering absolute desire. You, last least of my voices, woven into the wanting and waving. Hello. I can't imagine a music that stays new. Interstate 15, let him roll. Saturday morning, half alive, in Utah, I hear a song that makes me grit my teeth to keep from crying. Three speeches. To return to a forgotten song's a kind of gift in time. Music enough to say what love's not. Body of work, body of water, my body. What of it? Who claims it? Who is to say the bloom's late? Noon's all crickets. I know what I'm drawn to. The welling up's a wanting to say anything to you. Lenormand. A snake in the lilies, old problem, fragile pride. Seldom's a straight line in what we call nature. I think what's true of labyrinths is true, of course. Old problem, fragile pride, quarters in my pocket for a poet's parking. I think what's true of labyrinths is true, of course, of a sapling aspen growing in a burn scar. Quarters in my pocket for a poet's parking is what it sounds like. A few coins and the memory of a sapling aspen growing in a burn scar. The state of the face of a clock just prior to noon. Is what it sounds like a few coins? And the memory details what one can't forget for anything. The state of the face of a clock just prior to noon, the pace at which a contrail dissolves. Details what one can't forget for anything, reveal a windward cryptogram. The pace at which a contrail dissolves leaves me high and half the world below. Reveal a windward cryptogram, and some heaven at my feet leaves me high and half the world below, sounds an entire sentence. And some heaven at my feet, a snake in the lilies, sounds an entire sentence. Seldom's a straight line in what we call nature. Thank you.
Shannon, thank you. I'm speechless and my internal voicemail reset.
Thank you, Chuck.